Well, hey there. This episode is a little different than usual, but oh so valuable. Today I'm sharing an interview I did with Heather Schalk Parenting on her podcast called the Toddler Toolkit. After the interview was done, I immediately asked Heather if I could share the audio with you on my podcast too, because it's packed with valuable information that I know you're going to love. In this eye-opening interview, Heather and I talk about everything from food allergy awareness, navigating the playground, social events, and some surprising tips for school and playdates too. Yes, it's a little longer than my usual episode, but stick with it until the end for a surprising tip about navigating birthday celebrations at school. So grab your favorite drink, a pen and paper, and let's get to it. Hey Food Allergy Mama. If you're here, you've likely experienced the scary and lonely food allergy diagnosis with your child. Unfortunately, food allergy parents aren't taught how to navigate the food allergy lifestyle, and it's easy to feel alone and discouraged sometimes. But I'm here to show you that food allergy life doesn't have to feel restrictive, scary, or isolated. I'm Corinna, and I'm a 17-year food allergy mom and food allergy coach at Friendly Pantry Consulting. I specialize in making food allergy life safer and less worrisome for food allergy families like yours. I'm not perfect, but over 17 years, I've learned a lot the hard way, and I'm sharing the secrets and resources you won't hear anywhere else that will help you feel confident living with food allergies faster and easier than I did. From introducing allergens, travel, navigating school, and educating friends and family, this podcast will give you the essential tips and strategies you need to help your food allergy child and family thrive. Welcome to the show.
Hello, parents, and welcome to Toddler Toolkit Podcast. I'm Heather Schalk, your host, and today we're sitting down with Corinna Meckelborg. I am so excited because she is a multiple 17-year food allergy mama turned food allergy mentor. She helps food allergy parents keep their kids safe while living a normal life and worrying less with her podcast and business, Friendly Pantry Consulting. Welcome, Corinna. So glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
All right. Well, we would love to hear a little bit more about your journey, how you got started, how this all came about for you becoming a food allergy mama.
Well, actually, as you mentioned, I'm a 17-year food allergy mama. So basically, my oldest had food allergies to milk and eggs, and she outgrew them about the age of 4. But my youngest also has peanut and tree nut allergies, as well as a gluten intolerance. So right about the time my first daughter was outgrowing her allergies, my youngest got them. So I felt like I was starting all over again. And it was super isolating and scary in the beginning. And it was again after when my second daughter was diagnosed. So, it's just something that I've learned a lot the hard way. And I thought, I can really share a lot of this with other parents who are in this situation. And that's how I got started.
So you said it was super isolating for you. And I'm just curious if you could kind of share a little bit more about that. Like when I hear that, I think, okay, maybe you couldn't go to certain gatherings or tell me a little bit more about that isolation.
Well, yeah. I mean, back in those days, I feel so old saying that, nobody knew anything about food allergies. And honestly, it's getting better now, but there still is a lot of people who don't understand food allergies. And so that feeling of that it's severe and that it could be life-threatening, that really is scary for a parent. And that doesn't all the time transfer to the people around, because sometimes there's a misconception with intolerances or sensitivities versus food allergies. And so if they're thinking that it's an intolerance, but it's actually food allergy, well, that makes a huge divide. So it causes that isolation because the parent is now worried about traces of allergen, the food allergy parent, and the other person is not so worried about that. And this is can happen in bigger scales, like at birthday parties, at, any kind of holiday event coming up or anything. There's so many things that it impacts. And some people think, we can easily just avoid the food. It's not hard. but it really does have a complex set of issues that it leaves for parents. And so that's where that isolation starts, because you don't know how to kind of transfer that to other people and help them to understand.
Yeah, that sounds really tough. And I do think people just, they're not aware. And that kind of brings me to my next question for you, which is, moms and parents that don't have food allergy children, how can they be more aware? Even if they don't have to manage it themselves, how can they just become more aware about it? Because maybe a friend, a peer, or somebody else might have that their children are interacting with.
Definitely. Well, there's a lot of ways that you can consider that. And it would be asking people. You may not even know that some friends have it, because sometimes they don't want to rock the boat. They usually will mention it, but they may not know exactly. If they're just newly diagnosed, they may not even know exactly what they need to ask or need to talk about. So just opening up that door and letting that person just saying, is there food allergies? Do we need to worry about dietary restrictions? And if so, what will help you to kind of make this easier for you and your child and keep them safe? There's little things that you can do, even on a general scale, let's say you're going to the playground. Try to keep your food at tables. Don't let your child run around and play at the same time as eating, because what that does is it gets those foods all over the play equipment, which creates a huge stress for those food allergy parents who have young kids, and those young kids are putting their hands in their mouth. Even though honestly, food allergy parents are the cleanest parents around. They wipe their kids' hands all the time, but that they can miss it if they're on play equipment, and it can get into their eyes, nose, or mouth, and it can cause issues. So things like that can really help food allergy parents, even in small ways.
Yeah, that is such a big thing you just brought up, because I live at the playground with my boys, so I'm always observing things. And I do see a lot of kids carrying little baggies or a little food cup of chips or other things. And I think a lot of people think chips wouldn't have dairy in it or something like that. But actually, depending on the kind of chip it is, it's whey and other kind of ingredients are added to things that we don't even really think about, because we don't worry about it unless we're more self-aware. So I could easily see, what actually is in the food, what's in the ingredients. And the other thing is, it's just it's, and we all have our hard times. The kid runs off with the food and all that. But it is a safety thing too. It's running around, eating, choking, and just learning about good practices for eating, but also keeps our food allergy friends safe. So that is good to know. Now we have not just one reason to do it. We have two reasons to try to keep food off the playground and in play areas for other children.
I'm all about that. I'm all about having a win-win for everybody and trying to find that so that it is easier for everyone. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. So I can imagine you've just found out your child's maybe having issues with something, or their stomach's always upset, or you don't even know, maybe their skin's breaking out. I'm sure there's a lot of different symptoms to finding out about a food allergy. Some obviously more severe ones, you're really going to know something's wrong. But what advice do you have for parents who just found out their child has an allergy, especially if it's severe? That might make them feel like their whole world just turned upside down as far as what they can access.
Totally. Yeah. So food allergies. So what we want to just kind of discern here is the difference between intolerances and sensitivities and food allergies. And intolerances and sensitivities are more where you're going to get, stomach issues, just kind of long-term rashes, versus a severe food allergy, which is what I kind of deal with. And that is the hives, the trouble breathing, the fainting, the lots of throwing up, that kind of stuff, like the severe allergy that needs the EpiPen. So knowing the differences between that is going to be really important because you're going to have to explain it a lot. Because like I said, people just kind of lump the two together a lot of times. And so they don't realize the difference. And if you can explain that, that is very helpful. Another thing that I just really want to emphasize for new parents who are newly diagnosed is that you are not alone. There are other parents in this boat. It feels like you're all alone because sometimes you don't know anybody that has had food allergies. You're new to this. Nobody in your family has had them. And so if that's the case, it just feels like you're so alone, and it feels, like I said in the beginning, isolating. So I want you to know that you're not alone. There's a whole community of food allergy families who are dealing with these same issues at this moment. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of hope.
I'm just curious, going back to your children, what age did it actually pop up for them that you knew that they had a food allergy?
Yeah, so both times it was introducing new foods. So my first daughter, for milk and eggs, we were introducing both of them. So I think she was around, but anywhere between that 8 to 9 months. We kind of, we had introduced a few other things first, so it wasn't like their first thing, but that was for her. And then the other daughter, we didn't introduce, and back in the day, back then, they were telling us to not give peanuts and tree nuts until 3 years old. But I had talked with my allergist who helped me with my older daughter, and he said, no, you can introduce her. So she was about, I would say, 18 months when we gave her peanuts and tree nuts. And so we didn't do peanuts first, we did tree nuts, and that's when we found that. And then we gave her peanuts a little bit later, and that's when we found that allergy. So yeah, it was when they were, little guys.
Yeah, because now, what I've heard, and I don't, I'm not a medical doctor or nutritionist, so, take what I heard with a grain of salt, but I've heard to introduce, peanut butter and that kind of thing earlier. So that's what I've done with my kids. And I think weekly exposure, maybe even. Mm-hmm. So.
Yes, it's so important now because the newest research is showing that not avoiding them, getting them into that diet as soon as they can, and giving them all of the allergens at that earlier stage and keeping it in their diet regularly is going to reduce the chance that they're going to get food allergies. So yes, definitely that is the new, and it's hard to change old habits. And I find lots of people are still on that old thing of avoid them. And so a lot of parents are scared. And again, I'm not a doctor either, and I do not pretend to be, but I do know that that's the newest recommendation, is to kind of get them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. And I feel if you maybe I heard it somewhere online, or maybe my pediatrician mentioned it, but if I would not have heard that, I would not have known.
Totally.
There's no, like we said, there's no manual for parenting and the right way to do things, or the best way or optimal way. So, exactly. Unless we are exposed and know about it, we might not know about it. So it's very important. Awareness is very important.
Sure is.
All right. So we've found out that maybe our child has a food allergy. Okay. And now we're thinking about how that affects everything. So now this brings us to, does our child go to daycare? Do they go to preschool? Are they going to go to kindergarten? And how can we, make sure everybody's on the same page about that? Because our kids, they're sitting at a table with other kids. Could they be exposed? Do they have a table that's peanut free, or does it become a peanut free classroom? And then daycare, that just feels when I think of a teacher that is there every day, they can really monitor this. But then when I think of things like daycare, it's oh, well, that sounds like there's a lot more adults in the room, or rotating adults. And wow, how do we even navigate that?
Yeah, it's huge. So this is a huge topic. I have several podcast episodes about it, and I actually have a workshop about it. But just to kind of give you some starting points. When you are searching for a daycare, it's so important to make sure that that daycare or that school understands the severity of food allergies and they understand what cross contact is, which means if you have a bit of food and it touches a surface, then let's say it gets onto a child's hand from the surface, and then they get it in their eyes, nose, or mouth, that can cause a severe reaction. So cross contact is a little bit of food protein getting onto different things. And so you need to clean things well. You need to make sure that you're avoiding that. And so that's where all of these ideas of, allergy tables and that, and it's not a great option because allergy tables can isolate kids, but sometimes it's the only way. But there are other options as well. But the importance is to not assume that just because somebody looks after kids, it doesn't mean that they're going to understand food allergies in the way that they need to. And oftentimes, most times it's parents who need to do the educating. So you need to get yourself ready and be, prepared and just get ready for some education and a lot of research to really figure out if that school is understanding food allergies. And if they don't, are they open to understanding food allergies? Because you want them to have the attitude of, yes, we can do this. We're going to work with you, versus being, dismissive and not helpful. So definitely it's about doing your research and also, being prepared with having to educate that school. And I always like to educate, even if you meet with the school, you also need to meet with that teacher, because that teacher, if it comes from above, sometimes they may not fully understand. And so you really want to talk with them and make sure that they're understanding and that you have a relationship that's open and that is about working together. So, always helping and being the most helpful you can so that you're in a position to work together and keep a team atmosphere and the whole thing.
Yeah, that's super important. And I think, maybe different schools have different policies. I know there's some that, if a child has a peanut allergy, for example, it becomes a peanut free classroom just because it's too hard to, like you said, there's exposure that could easily happen. And there really should be some kind of an allergy care plan with the nurse on hand at the school and with the teacher, and teachers need to be trained to use the EpiPen or other whatever is needed. And there should be a plan. If this happens, this. And I know parents advocating for that. I worked in schools, so I know that some schools were really on top of that. And it might just be a county-wide requirement of the schools in that school system as well. So.
Well, and I think I love everything you're saying. That's exactly what I would say. But I think also it comes down to the teachers understanding that they need to label read every single thing and not only do it once, but do it twice and have the parents reading the labels, because it's so easy to miss those allergens, especially if you're not doing it all the time. So there's label reading, there's all the cleaning that needs to happen. So I feel like a lot of schools, if they are understanding food allergies, they understand that they need to know how to use an EpiPen, which is great. But I really would love it to go a little bit further, because there's all these celebrations in class and there's, these birthday parties. Some schools don't have them, but if they do, it can be really make a big deal and be very almost isolating for the kids because they can't take part. So there's a whole range of effects that this has, and it's not that it can't be done. It can definitely be done. It's just the attitude and the, figuring out what's really going to work for both the teacher in the classroom as well as that child and keeping them safe. So it's a big topic.
Yeah. And I love what you said, because what Corinna is really saying is we shouldn't just rely on reactive strategies, reacting to it happening that's already too late. We need to be more proactive, checking ingredients, understanding how ingredients have different names. Totally, it might be under a different name, but it still has the allergen in it because that's how food labels work. There's many different ways to say something is in a product with changing its name, and then that's something the teacher doesn't understand. It could easily go wrong. So yeah, I really think that's important.
The cool thing is that with labels in the US and Canada, they do have to name the top allergens by their common names. They can't use a different name.
That's
good. If a child is allergic to something that's not in the top allergen category, which can happen, that's when different names can be. Now, that's a whole different story when it comes to like personal care products. So if you're having like soap, then they may have different names. They don't go by the same laws that the foods go by, but in general, food will, if it's in the top allergen category, will be by its general name.
That is reassuring and good to know, just especially when we hear so much about ingredients and labels and not really knowing. So that builds a little bit of confidence in that. So yeah, there's just so much to, like you said, there's so much to go into. So if you guys are interested in hearing more about this topic, I know Corinna says she has more on her podcast called The Food Allergy Made Easy. So go check that out after you're done listening to this one. So what are some common mistakes that parents who have food allergy children might make? And I hate to use the word mistake because it's like, we're all trying our best here, but maybe there are some avoidable mistakes that we should shed light on to help parents out that are listening today.
I was thinking about this, and so many parents, when they become food allergy parents, and if that's what you want to call it, or when their child is diagnosed, they are amazing and they do a lot of research and they figure it out. They are parents who get things done and they want to keep their child safe. That's, and included as well. And so I would say, though, that something that a lot of parents think, but they don't realize is not true, is that they think this is how it has to be. And this mental weight, this is all there is. This is how it's always going to be. But I feel like I want to give a little bit more hope than that, because there are strategies and there are tools that can lighten that mental weight a little bit. So yes, there's always going to be sort of a certain amount of anxiety or like fear, but it doesn't have to be overtaking, and it doesn't have to be like there's no hope. And so that's what I really want parents to know, is that there are ways to lighten that load a little bit, to be able to live and to feel confident in that, and as well give that to your children, that confidence and that empowerment.
I love that. So what are some top ways or top tips you might have for anxiety for the children themselves navigating their day, or just the parents worrying about their kids off at school or interacting with other kids?
Yes, well, I'm definitely not a psychologist, but if things are affecting you and your child in a way where you're not able to do things, like it's stopping you from doing everyday life things, please do seek out some help, because it's not helpful for anybody. So if you can see a psychologist or anything like that, that would be super helpful. As far as the everyday anxiety, I would really protect what you see online. So even like the best like food allergy nonprofits, they sometimes post scary tragedies that happen to get awareness out there. But you do not have to look at those. You can protect your mind from that, because that's really sometimes very debilitating, seeing those tragedies. And even in Facebook groups, there is a lot of times when there's a lot of fear mongering happening. And I think sometimes people just want to feel that there's somebody else out there that feels scared with them. And so they put these things out there. But it's important to kind of protect your heart, protect your brain from those things. And if you're feeling like these places online are not a safe place for you, then definitely avoid them, because it's not something that's going to help you with your anxiety or your everyday life.
That is really good advice, and something that may not be on a lot of our awareness scale about how those stories could be kind of triggering and creating even more anxiety. And then especially for the children too, if they're hearing or seeing it, and then they might have build anxiety too. So when we think about our friends or family and letting them know about this, communication is just so important, how we communicate it. Do you have any strategies or advice for us on communicating the allergies? Especially people can be forgetful too. So I'm just curious, how can we be adamant but crystal clear in our communication so accidents don't happen?
Mm-hmm. So this is, again, a big topic and a lot to think about. You want to be clear. You want to be not overwhelming. And I know that sounds really hard, but, you want to think about what really needs to happen to keep your child safe. And what are you hoping to get from this communication? So let's say you're talking to a birthday party host. Maybe this person you will be lifelong friends with, but maybe not. Maybe this will be a one-off thing. So you need to keep that into consideration when you're communicating. You may want to think about, okay, what needs to happen to keep my child safe? What is reasonable for that host to do? And how can you help them? And so when you go through all of those and then you go into the conversation, if you understand what you're looking for, that will help to mold that conversation. If you're talking with somebody that is, a family member, well, then you will probably go into more detail and you'll probably need to explain more. But if you can think about, what needs to happen to keep my child safe, what is realistic for that person to do, and how can I help them, that will hopefully help mold that as well. So every single conversation is going to be different, and there's going to be different things that you need to pull out and talk about, but just kind of clearly understanding your needs and your child's needs in the beginning will help you to kind of get what you need from that conversation.
That's really great. Yeah. And I know if we ever have a little neighborhood gathering and there's a neighbor child with an allergy, I am let's show this to your mom. If they're there, obviously that's not always the case. When kids are younger, parents might be around, they can kind of monitor more, but as they get older, maybe they're going off to the party on their own. So, but it's since I did work in a school and I did hear of allergy things, I'm always very freaked out about it. Here, let's show your mom because, two eyes are better than one, right? So if I miss something, totally. Maybe, somebody else will catch it. So double read it, maybe triple read it if you're, it's a really big, so important. And, that just makes me think the holidays are coming up. We just had Thanksgiving and some people might still be traveling for this holiday, maybe for Christmas or other holiday traditions this December. And, that is a whole nother thing because you have maybe multiple families bringing different dishes. So that is a lot, right?
Potlucks are the worst for food allergies. So I always say too, if you are really hoping to include a friend or a family member, holidays are different. That you may have to talk to your family about how you can make that safe for your child. But if it's a group event, if you can avoid potlucks, it is, and I don't say to mean get rid of food completely, but there are so many activity-based things that you can do, like talent shows, games nights, scavenger hunts, arts and crafts. If you can kind of focus on a non-food activity, it is going to help those people so much. And if you do really want to have food, try and find something that is going to, maybe one thing. So you're going to have a s'mores night, let's say, and that's the theme of the night. And you can see, okay, well, who has food allergies? You can talk to them. Is there a way that we can get some s'mores that are going to be safe for your child or your family so that you can be included too? And that is just makes a world of difference. And just that inclusion is really huge. And food allergy families are so grateful for that.
Yeah, when you mentioned about the potluck, different organizations or clubs or churches, they might have these during the holidays and you don't really know what's in it. And even this is a non-allergy example, but it was a dietary preference. And this was among adults. But at one of my schools, we would do a soup day, once a week. a bunch of different teachers would sign up to do soup, and they did like a vegan soup, but they used chicken stock, and they didn't know that it's not, oh, you use vegetable broth. Like they didn't even know. And they just thought all broth is like chicken broth. So then the one teacher had it, and they're like, right away, they're like, this is definitely not vegetable broth. But it's just that example just shows how like easy it is to not really know. And that wasn't even a serious allergy. It was a dietary preference. So it can be so tricky, just people's awareness, and they might not even know what they're putting in the food. So.
Totally. Well, people think like they don't even realize, like when you say, if you don't live with it, you can't be expected to realize it, because sometimes there's things like, I have a milk allergy, and then people will put, oh, I just fried it in butter. Oh, they don't realize butter is milk. Or even I've had people say like, oh no, there's no peanuts in this, just a little bit of peanut butter. And it's like, but peanut butter is peanuts. Or like they won't realize, oh no, there's no tree nuts. It's just Nutella. But Nutella is made from hazelnuts, which is a huge allergen for my daughter. So people, it's not that they're trying to be like, they just don't get it because they haven't had to live with it. And so that's where, people can say, well, it's so easy, we'll just avoid that. But like you said, if there's a whole bunch of people coming together creating potlucks, there's probably going to be someone who didn't realize that was a problem. And then that could be a huge problem. So usually food allergy families, they just don't even partake in a potluck, or they bring safe food for their kids. But a lot of times it just ends up being where they don't come. And so that I really would love to change that, because they miss out on a lot of things. And it's not because they don't want to go. It's more of like, it's an inclusion thing, right? So, hopefully we can start like just doing a little bit more activities-based things, or things that are a little more, like I said, like one thing, and then that they can work on that and how to make that friendly for the person.
Yeah. Like when you're saying this, it's like kind of like building that confidence, or even if they could maybe not big gatherings, but smaller gatherings where, like you said, they could do like an activity and it could still be special, and just kind of not centered around a bunch of food. Or if there is food, it's all labeled or something like that. Or they can bring their own food, and everybody's aware there, like, hey, nobody's going to have peanuts today.
Right.
At this gathering. But that is really sad, and like to not be included, and also wanting to be a part of things. So yeah, thanks for raising that awareness, because, I think most people just think about, people are busy, and they just think about, like, oh yeah, like that would be bad to have an allergy, but they're not thinking of all the details, because it's not top of mind for them like it is for families so totally. Yeah. So do you think there's a growing number of children or toddlers that have food allergies, or is there just more awareness these days?
That's a really good question. They do say that it has been growing, but I don't know the most recent data on that. But they're saying that 1 in 13 kids, which means about 2 in every classroom of 26, is about where we're at right now. And so, that gets a little bit, because sometimes they were self-diagnosing and self-telling. So it's hard to say if that was like the most accurate number, but that's what we have right now as an accurate number. So, they don't know why food allergies happen. So that's another thing that I think people need to know, is that there isn't a reason for it. There's nothing been proven as to why, like the mom didn't make a mistake in what she ate when she was pregnant. It could happen to anybody, and it's not necessarily what you've done. So I think a lot of times people will try and cast some blame a little bit, or they think, oh, why did you have that peanut butter when you were pregnant, or why did you do this? But it's not proven. So that is something to know for everybody, is that they just don't know why it's happening. And so hopefully we will find that out more and more. There's so much happening in research, and there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of things coming down the pipeline. So hopefully that will kind of get figured out soon.
Yeah, that would be great if we could have a better understanding or catch things earlier or have just a better system for that. And I'm curious, so I know we talked a lot about this, but are there any other ways that moms can help support friends, families that they interact with food allergies that we haven't talked about yet?
So as we mentioned, in general, keeping food at tables and benches and even in your home. So let's say you have a family, let's say you have a niece or a grandchild who has food allergies. If you're keeping food at the table and, wiping things down and things like that, that is so helpful because then the parent knows that it's not going to be all around the house. And especially when kids are toddlers, like the age that a lot of the moms are that listen to this podcast, they're putting their hands in their mouth all the time. So keeping food in one area where you can kind of keep it and wipe down things and do all of that is very helpful. As well as when you're out and about, let's say you're at a park and you just finished eating, cleaning up your garbage, wiping things down, that creates a really nice environment for everybody, but it also makes it more food allergy friendly, which, it's a win-win. Like I mentioned before, I love those win-wins. And if you have friends who have food allergies, or if you're in a classroom or anything, I really highly ask that people say, share toys, not food. Because a lot of times you'll say, oh, go and share these cookies with Joey. Or if you're on the playground, you might have a play date with a bunch of people and you bring a big thing of cookies. Unless you're absolutely sure that nobody has food allergies, don't bring that big thing of cookies because it is heartbreaking to everybody have a cookie and the child who can't have it has to have it taken away and then they watch everyone else eat that cookie. Or, it's just not safe. It could just be that you're causing someone to have a reaction because let's say they get it in their mouth before the parent, gets to them or whatever. So sharing toys, not food, is a great way to teach your child to share. So even if you're, here's your truck, can you show Joey how to play with it or whatever? That is a little bit more allergy friendly than bringing a big container of cookies.
Yes. And that does remind me also of just elementary school and the birthday parties and how so I know some classrooms are doing food-free parties. So if you want to bring something in, you're not bringing cupcakes or cookies anymore. You can bring in a little toy trinkets or something like that for everybody. Mm-hmm. And bringing food, it can be thoughtful, but they probably already have food anyways. And the kids need even more sugar anyways,
Totally. You know what? That's also helping the teacher, right? If you're bringing stuff in the school, the teacher doesn't want to have to clean everything up and deal with these kids who are sugared up, right?
Yes. All sugar high kids.
Yep. I mean, one of the things that I actually love doing or love recommending is sending in a book that the teacher maybe needs in their library and putting inside the book, this is dedicated to blah, blah, for their 4th birthday. And then the teacher can read it to the class and they get to sit maybe in the special spot. And it gives the classroom a book and it gives the class time to read together. And so it's a win-win-win for everybody as well. So these kind of experience-based celebrations would be great as well. I really love them.
Oh, wow. I love the idea of the book. So is that the parent of the child that sends in the book and says, this is for their birthday. Can you make the book a part of the day?
Yes. So then you don't have to.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about making those cupcakes at 11 o'clock at night.
I would rather just send in a book.
Yeah. Just send in a book.
Yeah.
Inscribe it with your child's name. It will be in that library forever. Well, for as long as it lasts. But, the teacher's going to be helped out with having a new book and the kids can read together. So yeah, I find that's a really great win-win-win for everybody.
Wow. I love that. And I'm going to have to write that down so I remember it because that's such a great tip. Wow, that's
awesome.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Well, I know everybody is just like excited to find out more. So what are the next steps for everybody listening? How do we follow you? Where can we go to get more information and great tips from you?
Definitely. So my website is friendlypantry.com, and you can also find me on Instagram, which is @friendlypantry. And my podcast is Food Allergy Made Easy. And I just want to let everybody know food allergies will never be easy, but I hope to make them easier. So hopefully they'll join me there.
Well, thank you so much for your insight, Corinna. I really love how you want to build confidence in parents that are dealing with children with food allergies, and how you're so thoughtful about like different ways that they can be a part and participate and really have that, social circle and that belonging that they're really longing to have. It's so positive, and I'll definitely be following along, and I know everybody else will too. So thank you so much. We really loved having you today.
And I loved being here. I really appreciate the ability to join with you and chat with you.
All right. I'm sure we'll chat again soon. All right. Bye, Corinna.
Sounds good. All right. Bye. Before you go, Mama, if you love this episode and want deeper support, head over to friendlypantry.com to see how we can partner together to keep your food allergy child safer and worry less. There's no need for wasting time searching all over Instagram, TikTok, and the web to get the practical knowledge you need for your family. While you're there, grab your free Food Allergy Kids Empowerment Guide or the newly diagnosed checklist today. Topics are not medical advice and are the opinions, views, and property of Friendly Pantry Consulting Incorporated. All rights reserved. Always contact your board-certified allergist immunologist for health advice.